Yeah, baby, it's airing live, and it's May 2nd.
Baby.
Shelley Showtime is here, making an appearance after like several episodes of not being with us. She's here for Palooza.
I wouldn't miss something that's fascinating.
She's gonna offer the intellectual side to Palooza.
I'm so smart.
And but I wasn't going to tackle this show alone. I had to make it bigger than just Palooza. I had to bring back the artist on Bass Reeves, Mr. David Williams, to join us. There he is. Crowd's going wild. Hey, give me the crowd noise.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah. Now, David, my first question to you is I want to know how many different pairs of sunglasses you have.
You don't need to worry about that.
Those ones you had on for the professionals, those were cool.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, get me a pair.
Shelley's got more sunglasses than, well, probably not more. She's probably got more shoes than she's got sunglasses, but she's got a lot of sunglasses. So, David, I warned you a couple of weeks ago that I'd bring you back for Palooza. Now, did you bring some pie to the show?
Yep.
Okay. All right. We'll save it. We'll save it. We're gonna get to it actually, right? We got a lot of things to do today before actually we're gonna have a little competitive drawing at the end of the show, but we have few things.
Wait. You're telling me you want your ass kicked again?
I am a slow learner. So I'm just like, yeah, give the fans what they want. It's like the rematch, even though you know I'm going down. They want to see the rematch, so I bring it to them.
All right.
That big paycheck.
Ginormous.
Huge paycheck, I'm sure. Wow. We've only got a few commentators here. This is really, come on. Where's the crowd? David, you're supposed to bring them in, man. That's why I bring you on, is for a ratings bump. Humphrey Bear is here.
How was your week, David?
Oh, it was good, working on Bass Reeves, doing family things. I cooked a steak for my wife.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Super nice.
Did you say you cooked a steak for your wife?
Yep.
Okay, so what kind?
What kind of
meat was it?
Boneless. I forgot what it was. Was it? I don't even know. I just know it was good and it was seasoned well.
So was it? Well, I mean, but was it a nice tender piece of meat? Did you have to tender it first?
No, not at all.
So you went for the good stuff.
Yeah.
I bought. I was over at the mall. Well, it was a couple months ago, and actually it was a year ago, and they had this big semi out there, right? And they had 12 ribeyes for $10, something ridiculous, right? And so I was like, man. So I got in line, and they end up, bait and switching me, and I get this big box of steaks for, it's like $100 or something. And so I've still got some of it out in the freezer, but it's not. Some of that stuff is not the best. They suckered me in with the big truck and the Angus on the side. It's like, yeah, I'm getting a deal, but not really. Yeah. Shelley's getting ready to do some serious math back there or something.
I got stuff I got to do.
All right.
So.
All right. Well, do you have math homework before you can do your pie presentation? Or are you ready to go? Are you ready to go whenever?
Not really, but
you can wing it.
Hi, Stephen. No.
Okay. All right. So Stephen Ing showed up.
Smock.
Louis Bright Raven's here. Where's the orange smock? I don't know. What do you mean, like Freddy from Scooby Doo? I'm not sure what he means there.
You're not wearing Husker.
Rodney's here. Angelo's here. Angelo wanted me to give you guys a tour of my studio. Maybe next week I'll do that. We'll make it a show. Yeah, there's some serious disaster going on here. I really have to straighten it up. But all right.
He just has so much stuff.
So David, give us a quick update on where you're at on Bass Reeves for those of us out here in the audience that don't know what issue you're on and how much longer you have to go on it.
I just got 2 more issues to do, and looking to wrap this up relatively quick because I want to jump onto the next big project, which is a crowdfunding project. And hopefully this will be my, I don't want to say masterpiece, but it'll be the thing that I've always wanted to do and what everybody always wanted to see from me. So we'll see.
So you finished issue 4 of Bass Reeves, and you got 2 more to go. 3 is out, right? That just came out not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you on any sort of schedule with that book, or is it just kind of you do it as quick as you can and get it out when you can?
There's a schedule, but there's a lull in the schedule because of COVID. So that gave us a little breathing room and all that kind of stuff. So it gave, the artists and some of the writers some time to just, do some other things. And then we came back to it and all that kind of stuff. So everybody is, nose to the grindstone right now, trying to get these 6 issues out. And
and to get paid too, that would be good.
Yeah, getting paid always helps. So we may end up be crowdfunding in the not too distant future, like close together here. So we'll have to we'll do our best to promote each other, right? So
awesome, yeah, for sure.
So, but you're not going to talk about what you're doing other than to say it's a superhero thing. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's not just superheroes. It's mainly superheroes, but I'll say it's people with abilities far beyond those of mortal men.
Oh, that would be a superhero.
Yeah. I mean, monsters fit into that too. So.
Okay. Well,
that's
right. Give me some monsters in there, and I'm on board.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
Well, okay. Let's get this thing rolling. This is officially Palooza. So what I want to do here is, what?
Shelley's back.
Look at this. This is the kind of crap that I have to put up with on my show.
Oh,
See, that's like
love it.
They know who the star is. I just carry her bags for her. I'm just like. Now I put down a little list of things. This show is so huge. And I say that every week, but I really mean it. This show is so huge. I had to write down an order of things we were doing here. So I wanted to bring you in, talk a little bit about what you're doing, what your plans are, and so now let's get into the pie thing. But first, let me remind everybody why they're here.
Everybody loves pie.
Yes, they do. Everybody does love pie. And we had a competition a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, where we had pie or cake. And of course, I was a pie guy and I got outvoted. So we had to have cake, and we did that.
It was delicious.
But not to be denied, I was like, you know what? If we had a cake night, we're having pie night. And so this is our pie night. So I talked my 90-year-old mother who lives with us into making some apple pie. So,
wow.
So I've got my pie. I got a piece over here for Shelley as well. The dog is trying to get some, but he's not going to. So, David, what pie did you bring with you?
I'm going to have it sent in, so hold on.
All right, I'll stall for a second. My favorite pie is blackberry. And,
really?
Yeah, but you can't buy that anymore because they always sell you boysenberry. But however, I'm also a cherry pie guy. But my mom makes great apple pie. Apple pie is always like, if you can't get anything else, get apple pie, and it's a guaranteed
success.
To
mess up apple pie?
I don't know. If you don't cook the apples long enough, you don't get them soft enough, and they leave them too hard.
Then I don't like it.
Yeah.
Costco does that. I don't like it.
Yeah, a lot of pies you buy, they don't cook the apples.
Right.
The apples, they don't cook them long enough, so you get these the apples are too tough or too hard. Drives my mom crazy. Her apple pie, it's soft, it's delicious. So I figured.
So good.
And she had a pile of Gala apples sitting there. I said, "Mom, you want to make me a pie?" She's like, "No." I said, "Do it anyway."
Oh,
no,
you're terrible.
No, she's
Yes, he is.
I am. But for 90 years old, she's still quite active and in really great
She
shape.
gives him crap right back.
Yep. So it's a fun time at the household. So, do you have your pie yet?
It's coming. It's coming.
All right. Okay. Well, let's do something else, and we'll come back to the pie as your pie is coming in. All right.
Wait. Before we do something else,
Yeah.
We should acknowledge a fallen soldier.
Oh yes.
That passed, John Paul Leon. And
yeah, he, like you said, we were talking a little bit off the air, and David knew him. I never met the gentleman. Was only 49 years old and passed away today. We don't know what the circumstances were yet. At least I don't. But a very good, very talented artist, and from all accounts, a really, really great guy. David, you might want to share a little bit of your experience with him, because, like I said, I never actually met him.
Yeah, I met him a couple of times, probably in the late 80s, early 90s. And I met him, it was probably in the 90s. And I met him through Tommy Lee Edwards. He's just a really sweet guy. And I talked to him a few times over the phone, and it was mostly just me gushing all over him and how great he is and stuff like that. And he wasn't that guy that just like, yes, he didn't particularly care about all that type of thing. And, he was just very cool to talk to, and very, open about, his art, and what he's about, and the artists that he likes, and, even doesn't like or whatever. But he was very cool, and it's a crying shame. The man produced so much, but even at 49, it's too young, and we selfishly want more.
Yeah.
And he's gonna have books written about him for a long time. So rest in peace, good sir.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thanks.
I want to see what's going on with these people in this pie. Hold on.
He's going to leave me to my own devices here for a minute.
He passed away from cancer, they said.
Yeah, Louis Brightraven says he passed away from cancer. So,
Christiana.
Now, this is my second cousin twice removed, and she can't believe.
Who was actually our little flower girl in our wedding.
Yeah, she was, and she can't believe I made my mom make pie.
Yep.
But
Ooh.
make is such a harsh word. I prefer to say encouraged her to make me some pie for the show.
Yeah, strongly.
Okay. Now, did you find out what the situation on your pie is there, David?
It's coming.
Are they making it right now?
No.
Rodney, you might be the only person, including my students, who are excited. Don't get your hopes up too much.
Look at this, Rodney. He's excited for Shelley's lesson on pie while we eat pie. So that's
I'm going to keep it really short, because really you're the only person. We have to stay with the theme.
That's right.
I'm just going to explain a little bit one way that.
Okay.
Done.
Well, while we're waiting for David's pie, we're going to jump ahead and do a little segment I prepared. It's kind of like a little game show moment here we could have. So let me introduce it with this. Okay. So David, now you're a big Prince fan, right?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Okay.
I saw him in concert.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. Okay. I'm going to give you Prince. And we're going to put something in there, someone else in there, and you're going to make the choice. All right. So it's a fairly it's a fairly simple little game here, and it's going to get more difficult as we go along. So let's we'll see what David's music tastes are here. Oh, I'm laughing already. Okay. Our first one is Prince or the McCoys.
Come on.
Think about that one.
I said we start easy now. Now remember, the McCoys gave us "Hang On, Schloopy," and you may not know this, the audience out there, but the lead singer from the McCoys was actually Rick Derringer, who played with Edgar Winter, and then went solo and had the hit Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo. So
Rain Man.
So who do you say there, David? Prince or the McCoys?
The McCoys would even say Prince.
That's excellent. Okay. All right. Now this gets a little more difficult here as we move along. So
is that picture actually mom's?
No, that was just a picture I got off the internet. Okay. So here's our next one. Okay. This is maybe some people back from Woodstock might remember this.
Goodness.
But so Prince or folk legend Joan Baez?
Oh my God.
Who are you going with here, David? Prince or Joan Baez?
I think Prince actually was a fan of hers, but
really?
I'm still obviously going with Prince.
Okay, so he stays with Prince. Okay, it's going to get tougher now. So
I could probably say that I had no input in this at all.
All right. I'm building up, David. I'm building up. Okay, so let's try this. How about that great '60s TV band, the Monkees? They sang a few Neil Diamond songs, and what do you think, David? Prince
had their own TV show, didn't they?
Yeah, they had their own TV show. What do you think? They're Prince or the Monkees?
I actually like the Monkees TV show, but obviously Prince.
What? Okay. All right. So you're truly a Prince fan. Okay, now this is the last one, and this is going to be a little bit more difficult. So we'll see. We'll see what your dedication to Prince is here. All right. For the finale here, Prince or legendary rocker Jimi Hendrix?
This is the thing. There's a lot of people that think that Prince was kind of riffing off of Jimi Hendrix, but he wasn't. He was a Carlos Santana fan, guitar-wise and stuff like that. That was his go-to guy.
Didn't he have Carlos Santana's daughter was playing drums in his band for a while?
No.
What the heck was her name?
Sheila Escovita.
Didn't they perform together?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
But she could have. I don't know. Maybe.
No.
But Prince has far more hits than Jimmy, and Prince is way more funky. So I'll stick with Prince.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
David Williams runs the gamut, and he's going to stick with Prince. Well, hey, thanks for playing. I appreciate it. I want you to know you win absolutely nothing for participating, but
we got some pie.
Okay. Oh, you got a la mode on there?
Oh yeah.
Is that peach?
Peach, pecan, pie a la mode.
Holy crap.
Nice.
Okay, now hang on a second. Now, is that your favorite pie, or is that just something exotic you thought you'd bring on?
No, this is my favorite.
That peach pecan, I have never even heard of peach pecan. I've heard of pecan, I've heard of peach, but never the combo.
Yeah.
And I like them both. But okay. Now, is that homemade, or did you get that someplace?
She got it at some store. I forgot what store she said she got it at, but
I have never seen that. Is that a New Mexico thing, do you think?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's very down south. When are we eating this?
Very what?
I said, when are we eating this?
We're starting right now because Shelley, while we're eating, is going to take center stage and do a little pie presentation for our audience.
Okay.
On the
wait, Jay. Oh, I used to teach math. You did. Oh, then
see?
The pressure.
Yeah, there's also an engineer on here who's waiting for your presentation.
No.
So let's grab
that'll be embarrassing.
And you guys that are watching this at home, we're supposed to bring pie too to join us. Even though we can't see you, you should be enjoying some pie with us right now. Mom scores again.
Yeah.
Shelley, take over.
I need because
you're gonna make me switch cameras?
Yeah. Well.
Okay. That's all right.
Yeah. because you don't have my stuff on there. So my stuff, because I tutor online as well, my whiteboard app and my little Wacom tablet.
All right, there it is. So,
Oh, that is? Okay. Trade me.
Shelley, explain pi to us, please.
Well, there's lots. Oh, I was going to bring my book, because if you look at Aaron's bookcases, you guys could probably figure out what kind of books he has. If you look at mine, you have books like The History of Pi and A Journey Through Calculus. What?
I want to open up the camera controls in case you...
Oh, I'm not going to get that fancy. And I'm going to take like 2 minutes.
There you go. All right. Sorry to interrupt. Continue, please.
Bert, still trying to lose weight? Oh, I hear you. I'd give up. All right. So pi, the magic number pi. All right. So 2 things that we're going to basically talk about. How do you come up with pi?
The history of pi, basically.
Well, what does pi mean besides the delicious treat? And then one way in history how Archimedes approximated the value of pi, because, well, we'll get into that. So if I take the diameter of this little circle, I don't know, it's kind of small, but right? If I measured that, and if I was, really preparing ahead, I probably should have. Bad teacher. And I wrap it around this circle. Oh, that was a shorty. It's going to go 3 in this little smidgen left over. I don't know if that even shows. Yep, there we go. So that little smidgen, depending on time frame, but even like ancient times, they knew they could approximate what it was, but they didn't know for sure. And so some of them just said, you know what, we're just going to ignore it and just call pi 3. Yeah, that little smidgen, who cares? And we'll just erase it and pretend it's not there. So then as we got obviously more, specific, more demanding, we know that pi is non-terminated, doesn't stop, it doesn't repeat, it doesn't behave. So yeah, so there's our pi. And of course, most people will say it's 3.14. One way to know it, that it's actually 22/7. If you put that, see, that doesn't even show. No wonder when you're drawing.
We'll grab a pen.
Oh my gosh, I am Mr. Bossy Pants. Those are too tiny.
There's an 8 right there.
I don't want to use your expensive pens. Sorry, we're just going to throw hands here in a minute.
Try that.
I thought it was an exact.
Give her a Sharpie.
I know, you would think. It was 5 mil. Oh, wait, I have in my. Because every geek has to have this. I got mine. I got my own. All right. So 22/7. And I've been asked a million times, what do you put in the calculator first? I know. I try really hard not to roll my eyes, but I tell them it's 22 divided by, because the divided thing is like that, right? So you pretend that this is the divided by the 7, and then you'll get your decimal for pi. Or, of course, if your calculator has a pi button. Okay.
So what you're saying is the width of the circle, if you wrap
The
it around the
diameter
circle,
through the
will go
middle.
all the way around the circle plus.
It'll go 3 times with a little bit of leftover.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right. So one of my favorite things to do with my students when I taught geometry forever was when we would talk about polygons and finding the circumference of, like, say, one of them, is we break it up into triangles and find that length. Right. And once we know this from all of these congruent triangles, then we get the whole perimeter of that. Okay. So Archimedes, one of my favorite guys ever, besides Aaron.
Hey, how about that?
How about that?
I'm right up there with Archimedes.
So one idea in math, especially in calculus, is if you really can't have a way to get the exact answer, you can squeeze the answer, squeeze theorem, where if you come at it from 2 different directions, And as you squeeze towards the answer, it'll pop out, right? Kind of like a zit.
I thought you were going to go
I teach
there.
adolescents, so that's applicable for them. Okay, so I start them out with like a square. So if we do that on the inside, and I should mention that Aaron's the artist in the family, not me. So we do one on the inside and the outside. So there's our squeeze, and they don't know they're doing this. They're in their groups, and I give them certain number of sides they have to come up with, given, I believe either I give them a side, the square, I think I give them the radius of the circle. Anyway, so what Archimedes did is he said, well, if I increase the number of sides on the polygon, the more sides I have, the more circular-like it will become. Right? So a circle you could think of as infinitely many sides. So that's how he squeezed the number pi out of that. So if they come up with from 4, maybe a decagon out of 10, and they just keep getting more and more. I think I had kids up to 50. And as they saw the answers were getting closer to the value of pi, that was kind of cool.
Interesting.
So there is how Archimedes approximated the value of pi.
So why is it called pi though? Do we know that? Do you know that?
No.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to get my book, though, now that you asked.
We stumped the professor.
Oh, yeah. And there's, oh my gosh, there's so much, like, of course, there's massive books written, but that's my favorite thing to explain with kids, is to just increase the number of sides in your polygon so it becomes more circle-ish. From the inside, we're squeezing, and then the outside, we're squeezing, and then boom. In the middle, there you go.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Woo!
that is pi.
Me, Mrs. L.
On Pi Palooza.
There we go.
Thank you, Shelley. Let's give Shelley a big round of applause. That's what I call entertainment value. I'll tell you right now, who else's live stream is going to give you that kind of information? And dessert. I mean, come on.
And ASMR.
All right, so how's your pie, David? What's that?
Great. I said, and ASMR.
All right.
So that you guys know I'm not fibbing. The geek that I am.
She's got books.
A tour of calculus. A history of pi.
See, those are the kind of books that scare me. They never make it into my studio. They stay outside.
Master's thesis stuff.
Did you see
right.
Chris? Did you see Chris Nolan's movie Pi?
I did not.
He did a movie called Pi. Seriously?
That was his first movie.
I thought his first movie was the that murder thing with guy. What's his face? Where it has reverse storytelling. It starts at the end of the. He has to. What was that called?
Oh,
Memento.
you know what? You're right. That wasn't him. I'm thinking of Darren Aronofsky. He did.
Okay.
Pi. He did Pi. My bad.
All right. Don't give the crowd false information, man.
Sorry.
They'll tune us out. They haven't already.
Yeah, that pi thing, they were dropping like flies.
Here you go. Here's a typical student response.
Me too.
Calculus and I have a hate-hate relationship.
Well, the only thing I remember from calculus in college is crying. So
I remember not taking it. I'm feeling really good about myself.
Had 7 terms of it. But the when kids were starting to ask me to tutor calculus, I was like, so I retaught myself first year calc. I didn't cry once, so I must be all right.
That's your pie too. You don't want
to. So yeah, so now I can tutor calculus.
Well, there you go.
Anybody needs some math help, you give them my name.
And while we're on the subject of Shelley, a lot of people, I've still got a piece of crust I haven't finished yet, but I'll get to that in a little bit. A lot of people come up to me and they're like, Aaron, we kind of get what you do at Comic Cons, but what does Shelley do? That's the question I get asked the most. And so I prepared a little segment here
Or when I'm not answering questions like, did you draw this?
But she's not doing that.
Is this free? And then they'll go, well, if you didn't draw it, what do you do?
Well, let's find out.
That's just one.
Who is that guy? Oh my goodness. So Shelley goes around and gets photographs with guys, good-looking guys in cosplay, or maybe an actor if she happens to see one. But there's always somebody strange in the background.
Well, that's a given.
Looking on. So
looking on it. No.
So that's
I
what
like
Shelley.
hanging out with the fans, I guess. I don't know what to call them.
Our supporters.
Or typically later now that I just show up for dinner.
That's right.
Yeah.
She hangs out at the hotel, goes shopping or whatever, then meets us for dinner later on.
I
That's
used to
kind
go to
of
the pool a
punishment.
lot.
Yep.
But yeah, this body doesn't get by pool. No.
Now, there's one other thing before we get into some serious drawing and some serious action here.
Serious?
Yeah, serious.
We don't do that.
We always, David, you probably may remember this last time you were on, we always like to take a moment and kind of go back in time a little bit and review some precious moments from yesteryear.
Oh.
Now, this one is, it's almost troubling, but so I'm sure that's going to bring some people to tears. But David, I was thinking of you when I brought this up. So let's take a look at some precious moments from yesteryear.
What can we do, Batman? It saddens me, Commissioner, but I just don't know.
Aw.
Batman doesn't know? Wow. I saw that and I was like,
It happens to the best of us.
oh my goodness. And the scene following that in the episode, him and Robin are in the Batmobile, and Robin actually solves the Riddler's riddle that they just got there. And Batman's quite impressed with his little chum for figuring that out. So it's really kind of a bad episode for Batman all the way around. But yeah. So
they didn't for most of those, it was Robin really coming up with a lot of the answers, because they were trying to make the youth feel like they're important. You know what I mean? So they wanted to have that message in for young people that, hey, you could help a hero, and that was the message that they were trying to put out back then.
I see. Okay. Well, I was a little disappointed in Batman that he just didn't know, And the funny thing in that scene right before that, or a moment in that scene right before I showed, the Riddler had apparently stolen something, and it was on that podium there. They were looking at him. A guy rides up on a bicycle, and he goes, "I'm looking for Batman." And Batman goes, I'm Batman.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And he hands him a telegram and rides off on his bicycle, and it's a telegram from the Riddler. And I thought, the first thing I would do is maybe grab the telegram guy and find out where he got the telegram from. But I don't know.
They had an episode where Dick was doing calculus and he hated it. He goes, I hate calculus. And Bruce, kind of chastises him and sets him straight and how important math is and all this kind of stuff. So, going back to, Batman not knowing, maybe in my mind, Batman is pretending not to know just to have Robin use his mind, in the scenarios.
Hey, now, do you remember? This just came to mind. I think I have it. I should have pulled it out, but it'll take me too long to find it now. But you did the program guide for one of the SuperCons, right? Where Batman and Robin, where Adam West and Burt Ward were both on the show, right? Mm-hmm. And actually, I think what's her face? Not Catwoman. Batgirl was there too. Remember that show? They had like they were the first time all three of them were together at a show.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. So
what was that, like 98 or something like that? 96, 98, something like that.
I've got the program over there, but like I said, it's tucked away in a box, and so. But did you get a chance? Because it seems to me like you're the kind of guy that would like go approach those guys and sort of befriend them. Did you talk to them at all? Either one of those characters?
I didn't go up to them personally. Oh,
really?
They had me come up. They had me go over to them because I did the art. Because Adam West was asking who did the art because he was signing so many of them. And Burt Ward later said, because he had a costume there, and he said, "Hey, do you want to consider doing a trade? For the artwork. Like if you gave me this is the weirdest trade ever. It was the red tunic. It was just the top part. I don't even think. I think it was the cape. It could have been the cape or whatever. And he was stressing that it was screen worn, which I doubt it was. But he was saying, I really want this art. If you give me the original art and $4,000, I'll part with this, original. And I was just like, yeah, I don't have the original art. Sorry. So I tried to not, even if I had the original art, I wouldn't have done that, but it was still nice that he, wanted it so bad because he was trying to find that way to get that art. And Adam West was very complimentary. He was a real nice guy. We talked for a minute. And before the show, my mom came to the show, and we were going to breakfast, and we were in line, and Yvonne Craig was right there. And I was saying, "Hey, Mom, there's Yvonne Craig. She played Batgirl." And my mom is, a little bit extra, like touched her on the shoulder and said, "You're Batgirl." So they started talking because they're, roughly the same age and stuff. And they just started talking on a whole other subject, like woman stuff, and I was just like, all right, I'm going to leave you guys. And they talked for about a good 45 minutes and stuff like that. And I'm surprised they didn't exchange numbers. That's how long they were talking.
Christmas cards.
Yeah, exactly. And it was so strange. And I was like, my mom's talking to Batgirl, and I was just like, okay, this is weird. But some years later, when I was working at Warner Brothers, on two different occasions, Burt Ward was at this hot dog shop that me and Jerome Moore used to go to all the time. And Burt Ward was there with his manager, the same manager that was there. And I was letting him know, and I said, yeah, I did this drawing, and we met some years earlier. And he goes, oh, yeah. And literally a couple months later or a month later or something like that, Frank Gorshin was in the same hot dog shop. And I went up to him, and I was asking him, hey, would you want to come over to Warner Brothers and meet the Warner Brothers artists, at Consumer Products, and tell us about some of your, and he goes, man, I would really love to, but I'm doing something and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but he was real nice. He wasn't really blowing me off at all. He legit had to do something. And he had the same manager as Burt Ward at the time. And they gave me his card and stuff like that. And literally a month later, he passed away.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So I was just like, oh man, I was so disappointed.
Yeah, at least you got to meet him though. That was kind of cool.
Yeah. He was very nice.
I talked to Yvonne Craig at that show for a few minutes. I can't even remember why, but we were out. We were not behind the tables. I remember it was a really slow show, and so we had. I don't even remember what we talked about. What I do remember from that show, I think it was the same show where the the girl that played Tabitha on Bewitched, played the daughter.
Yeah.
Erin, I can't think of the last name. I think that's the same show she was at.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that right?
It was. Yes, it was.
Okay. Well, we were talking to her because she was wandering around, again, nothing to do, and came by the table and was looking at the art and everything. And I ended up trading. I did a sketch for her of a bear.
In the woods.
Yeah, with a Bewitched hat on and like the broomstick there, like he had just eaten, the Montgomery or something, and she thought it was hilarious, so she wanted to trade for it. So I got a autographed picture of her, and I think I insulted her because she said, "Well, what picture do you want?" She had one of her now, or at the time when she was probably in her, because that was in the 90s, so I was probably still in my 30s. Yeah.
What are you looking at me?
Well, I'm just saying I had to have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was we're about the same age. So she was still, so I guess she was still pursuing acting or whatever as an adult. And so she had a picture of her as Tabitha and a picture of her as an adult. She goes, "Which one do you want?" And I go, "Well, I got to have the Tabitha. That's the one that means something to me, And I was like, it kind of came out wrong, like, I don't care about your professional career now. I'm only interested in, Tabitha. But she was really nice. It's funny you run into those guys, and a lot of them are super nice. I haven't really run into any of the, actors or actresses that we run into at conventions, from the old TV shows and stuff that really were jerks that I remember. I mean, Erin Gray, man, we sat next to her multiple times, and she was super nice. And I do remember who was the guy from Battlestar Galactica that played Apollo? Richard Hatch.
Yeah.
He came to the show a little. He had warmed up before he came to the show, if you get my drift. Which I thought was kind of unusual. The show started at 10 a.m., and we're like, well. But and I met Dirk Benedict who played his sidekick. What was his name in Battlestar Galactica? You know what I'm talking about, right? The blonde guy.
Yeah. I can't think of his name right now.
That was Apollo's buddy in Battlestar Galactica, the original series.
Man, Google it.
I can't think of the character's name. Starbuck. No, he played Starbuck. That's his name of the character, Starbuck. He sold coffee in Spain. I ran into him at a show. Ran into him at a show in Arizona, and we caught a golf cart back from the show to the hotel, and we were getting ready to go to the airport. And it was funny because we talked a little bit in the golf cart, but I didn't want to bug him too much, And so then I was sitting there waiting for my cab in the lobby of the hotel, just sitting in this chair, and he's wandering around looking for someone to talk to. And there was no one around, so he came back over to me and sat down. We ended up talking for 30 or 45 minutes, and he was telling me about his house he had in Montana, and he lived right below a creek where he'd go and bring fresh water up. And as he was describing this whole scene, I'm like, dude, you're not selling Montana very well, because it sounded like Grizzly Adams or something. He was like, "Oh, I got a haul of water up."
Uh-oh, did you freeze? Uh-oh. Or did I freeze?
Sorry, I had an internet issue and I'd lost everything there for about 15 seconds.
Okay.
So sorry about that. But anyway, so he sat down and talked to me and, telling me about this frontier life he was living in Montana. And I guess his son was a professional soccer player in Europe, but it was interesting, to sit down and talk with those guys, and that, we sort of, saw on TV when we were kids, and then you kind of see them as real people years later. It's fun. It's interesting. So anyway, okay, looks like we're back. Yeah, I left, David, but you stayed. So you're the whole show now, Bro Hawk. So if I disappear again, just feel free to take over.
I will.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna give this to me. This is for me and my internet. I deserve that. Okay. And despite the technical difficulties, I think it's important here before we start drawing to remind everybody of this. I need your subscriptions. Help me out, people. All right, that's pretty much all I got for you. Okay, so David and I are going to draw pictures because that's what we're best at, or at least that's what I keep telling myself I'm best at. So I had thrown this out a little bit earlier. How do you feel about the Silver Surfer, Dave?
He's a nice guy. I'd like to try his surfboard one day. Oh, okay. Oh, you mean drawing him? Sure.
Yeah, I'm not looking for a personal story. I'm kind of more interested in how you feel about drawing it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sure. I'll draw.
I'm not sure I get to see this guy. Louis Breyraven always makes references, and I'm not really sure. Was that your pie face, Aaron? I'm not really sure I get that, but I'm gonna roll with it anyway. All right, so the silliness is over. Now the seriousness begins. I'm gonna switch over to now. Are you hooked up that we can see a draw?
Nope. I'll just move the camera.
Well, I mean, you're capable of moving the camera so that we can see you draw. That's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah. Could do that.
Okay. All right. I'm going to switch over to mine. So there's my board, my paper. Let me ask you something. What do you use when you're doing your pages?
Bristol board.
What kind of paper do you use?
Bristol board, just like you.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, do you get that pre-printed stuff, or do you with the blue lines on it, or
yeah,
they have a pad and
they have some of that at Hobby Lobby. It's real cheap. It doesn't, I'm not overly picky about that stuff.
Well,
but
that's what I use.
Yeah,
because it's super convenient. I mean, this is the stuff I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
Now the interesting thing, since I'm doing this, I use this for like my 11x17 commissions. It has just a little bit more tooth to it, but it's like 3 times as expensive as the blue line pad, which I find very interesting.
Why is that?
I don't know. I assume
crazy.
It's a better quality paper. Like I said, maybe it's a little heavier, but it has a little bit, just a little bit of tooth to it. And I use a lot of colored pencil on my my commissions, and so it works nice with that. So I've gone ahead and I use that, but it's like I think it's like $30-some, $36 for a pad of that stuff, and there's like 20 sheets or whatever. I mean, it's not cheap, but I was just curious. Do you use this? Do you use the smooth, or do you use the paper that has a little bit of tooth to it?
Smooth.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm a little bit picky because, I mean, don't you find that your paper reacts? When you're inking, don't you have preferred paper for that, or are you just kind of whatever?
Well, smooth makes the ink glide better, and it also doesn't absorb.
Exactly. Well, that's true.
So yeah, that's why I use a slicker paper.
Yeah, but that's interesting. I have found that erasing when you erase the pencil lines from up underneath your ink, that the slick paper, it tends to dull the ink a little bit because it hasn't really soaked into the paper, whereas on the rougher stuff it tends to not fade as badly when you erase over the top of it because it's absorbed into the paper. So rather than just sitting on top.
Gotcha.
But anyway, let me show this real quick to everybody. I just got a Morbius the Living Vampire commission that I just finished. Like,
oh man, that totally sucks.
Are you embarrassed for him? I know.
I know.
Oh
It's
my gosh.
I know. I
told him not to show it. But,
I keep thinking that at some point I'm going to get better. I'm going to improve.
That sucks so hard.
I know. But for those of you out there that aren't insulting me, what I did here was I went in with a cool gray and then colored blue pencil over the top of that for his costume, and then used a tissue to kind of soften the lines a little bit. But anyway.
No wonder.
Yeah, well, that explains everything, doesn't it?
No, that's pretty awesome. Can you actually put it closer to the camera?
Oh, so you can insult me more? I don't know if I can. Let's see here. I got to zoom in.
Yeah, just make yourself the main screen.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I guess I could do that, couldn't I?
Ah, there we go. That's pretty awesome.
So I got some. I probably should take it out of this stupid bag. I don't want to get pie on it, but
wow,
yeah.
That looks great.
Thanks. It's just gray marker, and then on the blue area, cool gray, and then blue pencil over the top of that, and then of course the red is just red marker.
Wow.
And of course the tones on his body and hands there, or his chest, face, and hands are cool grays as well. But yeah. So
You should give him some chest hairs.
Just a couple.
Do you notice that I don't think other than what was that? Other than Wolverine and I think what was that character's name? Puck. That was in Alpha Flight. I don't think any of the artists ever gave like Conan or any of these guys ever gave him chest hair. They just sort of like they were all kind of had that sort of Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilding sort of clean scaped look.
Man.
All right.
Real men are gone. Did I lose you again? Oh my gosh. Okay, now it's the David Williams show.
Okay. All
You're
right.
back.
I'm back. All right, so let's begin, shall we? And see what happens. I'm going to try. I did this. I did a Marilyn Monroe live feed in the middle of the week where I did Marilyn in one of the sketchbooks I had, and I sometimes tend to drift off camera while I'm talking and not paying attention to what the screen looks like. So I spent like 5 minutes drawing her without anybody being able to see what I was doing. I just saw the corner of the paper because I had drifted off camera a little bit while I was. So I got to get better at that.
Don't all vampires suck?
Wait a minute. Okay, now see, this is the kind of thing that if you're going to bring humor to the show, you got to do a little bit better. Okay.
Sure.
That's for Bert. Roscoe wants to know if he came in late. He wants to know if there's still some pie. Well,
Yep.
Shelley's still eating pie.
Well, I haven't even started, really.
That's right. David and I finished ours. I have a little bit of crust left over there. I'm going to bite into here in a minute. But yeah, hey, as long as we're on the air, you can. So you really put the effort in today, huh, David? Is that?
I win. I win.
I haven't even started yet. Well, you haven't. It's not going to be that hard to put you down if that's what you're giving me. Oh boy! Hey, did you move that Space Ghost piece you did last time?
Nope.
Really? What are you asking for it?
Was it 120 or something like that? I don't know.
That's it?
125? I don't know. It's all good. It all gets moved eventually.
Yeah, that's true. It does. You hang on to it long enough, you go to enough shows or do enough live feeds, you find the right person. You know what? I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like it either. Start over.
I'm doing it right now, man. So you don't normally, like, do you take a commission list and then just kind of sit on it until you've got time to do them? Or do you just avoid taking commissions until you're, ready, say to, okay, I've got time to do 3 commissions. Then you let people know you're doing commissions. I mean, how do you handle commissions, I guess, sort of?
Well, when I had a dry point, I was up to like 20 or 30 commissions. And then all of a sudden a bunch of work came in and it got it, down to 10, down to 5. And now I'm down to my last 5. But doing these last 5 are taking me forever, So like I wanted to do a video tutorial so people could see how I color with these last 5 because they're all in color. And so I could use that as, examples for live streaming or, the final pieces to go in my sketchbook, next sketchbook or whatever.
Right.
So if even doing sketchbooks are worth it now, since people don't even do shows. So we'll see.
I haven't done, the sketchbook, the hardcover I just did, it's actually been doing pretty well for me. Especially considering there aren't any shows to go to. But I wonder if sketchbooks have sort of come and gone in terms of their popularity, because so many people have been doing them for so long.
Yeah.
So it's always kind of trying to figure out what the next thing is that maybe someone might be interested in buying, and that's kind of the trick.
Yeah.
It's figuring that out. I've been actually working on a coloring book that I hope to have done by the end of the summer, if all goes well, just as something different. It's really an excuse to do black and white artwork, pieces. But I think the novelty of it actually being the coloring book that, because there's a lot of people out there that actually like coloring, might want to scan the images and, color them in Photoshop or just color them in the book itself. So I thought, well, I'll give that a shot. So I've got a good amount of work done for it, but I still have probably about six or 7 pieces I need to finish to do that. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it won't be a complete disaster. The nice thing about sketchbooks is those aren't necessarily things that I would be looking to crowdfund because they're not super expensive to produce. And you figure, well, okay, if I can sell, 150 of these, I'll break even. So you figure you can probably do that over the course of, not too great an amount of time. So. See, I was going dynamic, and then I switched from dynamic to more kind of a, I don't know what I want to call it here, more of a long shot, and you've gone dynamic. So you're probably going to beat me again. Well, let's see. Mike Miller has jumped in, and he's like, David Williams is on your show? Yeah, it's because I know the right people. Shelley Roscoe Davis says, I'll have coffee with Mrs. Shelley. Need me to brew some coffee? She can tell me all the good errand stories.
Sure is coffee. Yes. I have to have vanilla creamer, though. French vanilla. It's Francais.
Yeah, when you put that much creamer in it, is it really coffee anymore?
It is to me.
Are you a coffee guy, David?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did it a couple times at San Diego or at shows where like I'm just, when you stay up all night and then you got to get up and do the show and I'm like so tired I can't even move, then I'll have a cup of coffee or something, but I generally don't drink it.
Does Silver Surfer have ears?
He does not have ears.
Okay.
I had to chastise Terry Dodson. He did a Defenders cover a couple of years ago and he gave him ears and I'm like, dude, seriously? He's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, oh, that's what they got reference. No, it's like I was telling you, I've been reading the Silver Surfer Omnibus, or pardon me, it's the Silver Surfer Essentials, which is, it's nice. They reprint all that stuff in black and white. And that Buscema artwork is just really, really nice.
Oh, yeah.
But as I was reading it, and I hadn't read it in a long, long time, and it's just kind of, Stan Lee has made this, he bent over backwards to make this attempt to make the Silver Surfer this Christ-like figure. And yet he spends the whole time whining, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think Jesus spent a lot of time walking around whining.
My feet hurt.
Yeah, exactly. And it was funny because even when he faced off with Mephisto in the third issue, Mephisto tempts him 3 times, just like Satan tempted Christ in the wilderness 3 different times. And so it was kind of interesting. I hadn't really noticed it before. I mean, I did know that he tried to do that on occasion, especially in the Morbius miniseries he did with it was like that 2-issue thing back in the late 80s. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he was really trying to come. I just think Stan was trying to be a little bit too artistic. And I remember I've told this story before, but I had this conversation. I was at Marvel when I was working on Excalibur with Chris Claremont, and I was sitting out in front of the X-Men office with Claremont. We were talking about story ideas, and we got talking about the Silver Surfer. And, I brought up the question. I said, the Silver Surfer is kind of like Moon Knight. Everybody thinks he's the coolest guy ever. And yet whenever he has a series, no one buys it. We're discussing why that was. And the publisher at the time, why can't I ever remember his name? The blonde guy, Dan, when Quesada was there, Dan, what was his last name? Anyway, was the publisher, and he just happened to walk out of his office, and he goes, the reason no one likes the Silver Surfer is because all he does is whine and complain, and then he's walking, and we were like, yeah, that's true. So, but I guess Kirby's vision of the Silver Surfer was much more aggressive, and so he wasn't really thrilled with what Stan was doing when the Silver Surfer had his own series. But, like I said, I was thrilled with Buscema's artwork on that, for sure.
Kirby said, his interpretation of it was Galactus was, in his mind, it was like a God and Satan thing, and Galactus was God, and Silver Surfer was the fallen angel.
Interesting.
That he cast down to Earth.
Well, I can kind of see that now that you've mentioned that. Yeah, that's kind of how the scenario played out.
So I think Stan probably didn't like Jack's interpretation of it because he had a whole thing that he wanted to do. Obviously,
right.
Didn't fully realize it, and Stan did what he did.
Yeah. But I mean, you could see, when you read it, you can see that, what Stan was going for. And he was really trying to make this sort of oh, I don't know what I'd call it, a very, I don't know, not Shakespearean, but, just
Oh
a very,
yeah, I'd say Shakespearean, sure, for sure.
okay. And, I just don't think the audience was quite ready for it. I mean, it lasted about 18 issues. Well, it lasted exactly 18 issues. And, it's just in collectors' circles, it's just a really hot series and always has been. But in terms of readers, it's just interesting that that at least personification of the Silver Surfer never really took off like it probably should have. So I don't know if you'd say Stan was ahead of his time, or if he just was just not a good interpretation of the character.
I mean, he was set in his ways. He didn't think out too far out of the box after a while.
Well, that's true. TC Shen wants to know, David, Aaron, are these commissions available when they're finished?
Sure.
TC is a serious buyer, so. And Ken Carson is here. Now, you did Ken's show. You sketched on his show or drew something on his show not too long ago. Isn't that correct?
That is right. He's a great guy.
Ken is actually who I did the Marilyn Monroe for.
Oh, is that right? Cool.
Yeah.
He has good taste in art.
Sort of struggling a bit here because I think I'm feeling the pressure of the competition. It's getting to me.
Uh-oh. Tough to draw with both hands around your throat.
Yeah.
A bit.
Well, we're going to find out. Am I the kind of guy who wants a shot at the end of the game or not? Actually, I was a guy who wanted a shot at the end of the game. I just never made them. And I'm like, give it to me. And they're like, no, don't give it to him. So we probably discussed this before on the last live stream you did with me, but who did you have an artist? Did you have an artist when you were a kid that
Hi, John.
was like
No, I still haven't eaten mine.
like a guy that
He
you
still
really
has stress.
focused on that was like
He and David are in their competitive drawing.
I don't know, maybe your biggest influence, but at least when you were young, a guy that you just,
Yep.
if he drew a
He did
comic,
miss
you
my
had to have it
comics
kind of
or
thing.
things of it.
Oh, it was Arthur Adams.
Was it?
So I did like
Yeah,
it.
Arthur. He was my go-to guy.
History of
You know,
Pi.
so I don't think there's too many guys my age that it wasn't that guy. Because he kind of changed the dynamic of everything.
I'm sitting here with him.
Yeah, I often sit there and wonder what somebody like Michael Jordan or Art Adams or Michael Golden or Frazetta or somebody like that was just redefined the industry or became such a someone that people look back through on history and say that was one of the all-time greats, if not the greatest. What that would feel like to know that you're that guy,
Some of these guys think and know that, but there's others that just really are not concerned with that or kind of oblivious to it,
Go back to the
Do you think anybody's? I mean, there's guys that are very, humble. I mean, Arthur is, a really cool guy and doesn't, act like he's all that or whatever. But certainly he must know that what everybody thinks about him.
So I have nothing.
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
if they keep saying it at every show, of course, but there's still that,
But
you know, reasonable person in him that goes, I'm not all that, and but he appreciates it, and he kind of
suspected, but then
shines it on and just does his work,
And they all
which
Right.
is what makes him kind of cool,
haven't had any issues. And our
Yeah, I
governor has put us at high
I
risk
found most guys to be like that. I found a few guys
And Oregon
that
has, like, the
challenged
one
me a
of the
little bit
lowest-
with their
She said,
arrogance,
cut off
but
600 people in the hospital.
for the most part,
It's like in the state.
that's the nice thing I found about comics is, and maybe I don't hang around with the right guys, and so I don't know, but it doesn't seem like there's that many guys that are, so full of themselves that, they can't even, they need help getting through the door. I suppose there's some writers like that. I don't know. It's sort of become sort of a writer's medium.
There's definitely a arrogance in the writing community, which is strange to me, because
Yeah, Go ahead.
this business could survive without writers, believe it or not.
Well, I mean,
John
yes.
Byrne kind of proved it. He proved it with, okay, when he did that Marvel fanfare with no words in it, and it was just the Hulk, and
Yeah,
and then
Batman
he did
issue like that too, if you remember.
He
did a Batman issue like that too, if you remember.
I don't remember the Batman, but I remember the other one where he was testing people's, what they liked, when he did an Alpha Flight issue called Snowbound, where Snowbird was, in the snow, and every page was white, and it was just dialogue. That's all it was. And people were livid, they were like, what the heck is this?
Right.
And so
was that like his jab at writers? Was the kind of the,
I think it was almost like he was proving that, this is an artist driven medium, and writers shouldn't even get a big head about it. You know what I mean? Even though I consider him a writer just as good as, Chris Claremont and any other person out there that's getting, big accolades. He tells great stories. They're fun, So I thought that was pretty interesting. So that gave a lot of writers, artists, kind of the pick me up to say, hey, yeah, we're doing this thing. You know what I mean? We deserve the credit we, should get,
But it's interesting. Despite all that, there's been sort of this kind of resurgence of writer power, shall we say, in the industry. Several years.
Oh yeah.
It's and I've worked with some good writers. Don't get me wrong. I mean, most of the guys I've worked with, I don't want to cap on anybody, because I've worked with guys I've really enjoyed working with and that type of thing. But I just, this whole idea, and you see guys fighting for credit on like social media, artists, because they're, someone will mention the comic book and they'll only mention the writer,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And like, hey, somebody had to draw this too. And I've never really got into that kind of that thing, even though I do obviously, being an artist, I do appreciate the fact that we should be getting credit as much as the writer should be getting credit. But I just find it interesting how, Image sort of made the artists the thing, and then now it's kind of gone back full circle back the other way, where now the writers are, seems to be all that anybody cares about. And
I think that's the thing that these editors in their little secret meetings are saying. We don't ever want to blow up artists again, and create another Rob Liefeld or Jim Lee or whoever else. We don't ever want to give them that type of power again. which is foolish because people who could elevate the game, doesn't matter how it comes, you should you should welcome it, because it uh, uh, it rises all boats, you know.
Yeah, no, I
You know,
agree.
even during that time, books that shouldn't have sold were selling, even if it wasn't Image, because people were, you know, jonesing for that stuff, you know. And it wasn't because they had Alan Moore on it, or, you know, whoever else you thought was a great writer, you know. And that's the problem, you know. And that's the problem with movies and television and stuff. They don't go to the artists to say, hey, you know, we want to do your property. They go straight to the writer, you know. You
Right.
know, and the artist is the one that came up with 100% of the visuals. You know, and they're not asking for their opinion. You know, they may get a little, you know, pat on the back and, oh, you drew this, that's cute. Oh, where's the writer?
Yeah.
Oh, you know, let's slob them down, you know.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I read a I can't think of who well, actually I do now remember who wrote the article, but I'm not going to give him the credit because he's on my bad list. But the guy was basically had said that was quoting something that Stan Lee had said during an interview, and I can't remember who did the interview or whatever. And it was about, you know, his kind of little dust up with Steve Ditko about, you know, giving credit for who created Spider-Man kind of thing, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he said, you know, if Stan was being, you know, diplomatic as he normally was, and basically saying that if, you know, sure, Steve, I'll give Steve you know, in my mind, he's the co-creator and blah, 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 you know, which was not apparently good enough for Ditko because, you know, by couching it by saying, in my mind, he's the co-creator, is not really saying he is the co-creator, right?
Yeah.
And so that kind of ticked Ditko off. But this guy that was doing the interview kept pressing Stan Lee, and he finally, you know, admitted and said, hey, I came up with the idea, so therefore I'm the creator. Basically, Stan was saying, you know, and I mean, it's always a great discussion because, yeah, I mean, the person that conceptualizes something, you know, the concept of Spider-Man, you know, that was, you know, I totally believe that was Stan's concept, you know, hey, this teenager gets spider powers and, you know, but then Steve Ditko comes along and creates, you know, one of the great costumes of all time. And, you know, how can you discount the value of that? You know, even though he didn't initially come up with the concept, he sort of brought it to life, you know? So it's an interesting debate, obviously.
Well, the thing is that, okay, that same argument, there's people that hate Bob Kane now because, you know, he's taking all the credit for Batman, but he came in with the initial concept. Whatever, you know, Bill Finger, Dick Sprang, and all those other people did was after the fact, right?
Right.
But now Bill Finger has co-created credit on there, and however you feel about it, he's a co-creator now, but he wasn't at the time because he didn't take care of business like Bob Kane did by bringing a lawyer in and all this other kind of stuff and saying, hey, if you want my creation, you know, this has to be the deal, you know. And he was a 16-year-old. So
well, no, you can't argue his business acumen, but I mean, there is some sort of, there's still, I think, I don't know if Batman's the best example because I think there's still some sort of question about how much Bob Kane actually contributed to any of it, you know, other than the guys saying, hey, that Superman thing sold a lot. If we come up with our own idea, you know. So to me, it's still unclear actually how much Bob Kane actually ever even did.
Okay, but look at that goes to the same thing that I'm talking about. If Stan, the way he was, he said, I got this idea. His name is Spider-Man, and he's a kid. Okay, Kirby, do something. Okay, no, I don't like that drawing. Who's the next guy to do it? Oh, Ditko, what do you got? Oh, I love it. Let's go with this. And then Ditko adds this, and this, and this to the, mix. Then it's the same thing as Batman as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, in those terms, yes.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
It's, yeah, I can see what you're saying.
Because he didn't write like full scripts back in the day. He would give them like a paragraph and say, go draw this stuff and come back and I'll dialogue it later.
Well, right. I mean, those Kirby and Ditko obviously fleshed out those characters, the FF and, and Spider-Man. And certainly I would imagine Kirby probably created most of the, supporting characters that showed up in the FF. Yeah, I mean, so I guess that's what we're discussing is the concept the creation, or is the actual fully realized character the creation?
It's both. That's the problem.
So thanks for simplifying it for me, David.
It's just like, just say if you or I were to get into a deal, right?
Yeah.
I would put it up front and say, okay, I have this concept. Here's the main story. Here's the general idea, but I want you to come up with all the characters. But in my deal, because I came to you with it, I'm going to make it 60-40 deal. It won't be a 50-50 deal.
Right.
And 50-50 deals are stupid, because a 50-50 deal will prevent one or the other person from taking the project any further if they had a bug up their butt. Right. So if I got 60%,
right, no, that's yep.
So if I got 60%, I could say I'm taking it to Netflix and you're coming along and you'll get 60% of whatever the product is, that they're paying us for this thing, for the IP. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how it should be all the time, So if I go to a writer, the same thing, and say, hey, I have this general concept. Here's the characters already done. Can you flesh it out? The reverse would happen. I say, I came to you with it. I get 60% and you get 40%. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's where the problem is, especially with the older characters, is, I mean, everybody's sort of aware of all this stuff now, but back then no one was thinking about movies or TV or, anything other than the paycheck. And, we filled a month worth of material for some kid to read this comic book. And, that the short-sightedness of the artists in those situations is, I mean, really, I guess it's their own fault, but I don't see any issue, at least in today's marketplace, where you can't, make those agreements up front so that, David, scoot your drawing down just a little bit. We're losing the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
was getting carried away.
Yeah, well, that happens to me all the time too. I got to be super careful, man. I keep losing my drawing, but I don't have a problem with that. I think it's just, I think what people want, or creators want, or at least I would guess what they want, is just, appropriate credit for the effort they put into something.
Of course, for sure.
And, if you get money beyond that, that's great. Because I do appreciate, the publishing company who's, I understand the business aspect of this is that we're all creators and we come up with these great ideas, but if we don't have the money to produce them, then, the person or the company that offers us the money to produce those, they're, without them, this thing is never getting out of my file drawer.
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that they should get everything. But I do understand that. How should I put this? I do understand the value of money, and
Yeah.
even though they're not providing, and I'm not sticking up for Marvel or DC or anything else. I'm just saying from a logical standpoint that, if they're producing the means for this to actually even be seen by anybody, that's pretty valuable in and of itself. I know a lot of people get ticked off at George Lucas because they said, well, Ralph McQuarrie, is it Ralph? It's Ralph McQuarrie, right? Yeah. Did all these designs and basically created this universe. But I was like, well, okay, well, he was well paid for it. And I mean, he knew what he was doing. And, they were concepts that George brought to him and hired him to do. And they wouldn't have, they never would have been anything if Lucas hadn't been able to put together the film and have it be a success that it was.
Sure.
So, but it's funny how often since, Stan Lee has passed and, of course, Kirby's gone as well, that this conversation about who did what and who deserves what credit for what seems to be in the forefront all the time. And I guess I'm adding to it by bringing it up, but I just find it fascinating because it's not an easy answer.
Yeah. Well, they should have had something to where they say, okay, we want to renew a contract to where you guys are getting a little something from this because we are getting. I mean, there's people on the payroll that are getting paid off of Silver Surfer who didn't do not one drawing or one written script, and they get to go to Tahiti and all this other kind of dumb stuff, And so that kind of stuff needs to, and I'm talking about lawyers, and I don't think editors should have 3 and 4 assistant editors. You know what I mean? I remember when editors used to work.
Yep. Well, especially now with, what's going on with their, cutting page rates and cutting their expenses. I'm talking about the big corporations, AT&T at DC, of course, and then Disney at Marvel. I can't remember my point.
Your point is that David Williams is absolutely right, and everything that David Williams says is brilliant.
Yes, that was really that's why I have you on.
Yeah,
because I can't bring this sort of stuff to the show. Only Shelley can, and then so I figured if I get you and Shelley on, then we've really got something going.
there you go.
No, I just yeah, I mean, Archie Goodwin's a perfect example. Everybody talks about what a great editor Archie was, and he was, and what. I mean, I know what editors that was my point. I doubt the editors are getting paid what they were getting paid before all these cuts came. And I actually know because I talked to Dan DiDio about possibly becoming an editor at DC, just kind of as, casual conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a pretty good idea of what those guys are making were making. And it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's better than us.
That's for sure. That's why
that seems that's strange to me.
I was going to get a T-shirt that said, "I hate all editors."
That's a good way to get hired again.
Yeah, I wasn't looking. I was looking to burn that bridge.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, and I've been overly cautious my whole career, and the funny thing is, usually editors don't stay any one place long enough that no matter what you said to them, there's going to be someone replacing them.
That was another reason I hated them. Is just like every time I would go in, I'd have to resubmit a portfolio like I was an amateur. I was like, man, You guys should have a database of all my stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, when I hit a rough spot, I was standing in line at San Diego, and this was in 90. This was after I'd done Tachyon, so it was probably close to 2000. And it was like one of these stretches where 3-month period, I think, where I just didn't have any work at all. And I was literally standing in line to show my portfolio at the Marvel booth. And I remember people, other pros coming up to me, and it was the most humiliating time of my life because they come up to me going, Aaron, what are you doing?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
I'm standing in line to show my portfolio, see if I can get some work. And they're like, you shouldn't have to do that. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm doing it. It actually worked out because I did get some X-Men work as a result of it, but it
shouldn't have to.
Yeah, it would have been nice if I hadn't had to do that, and sort of, because whenever something like that happens, of course, everybody happens to pass you by. You don't see anybody, the whole show you're there, and then as soon as you're standing in line being humiliated, everybody walks by, and you're like, oh, okay, God, thanks for keeping me humble.
The thing that kind of makes me sick is like people like yourself that deserve the work, and you guys are dependable. Like Norm Brayfogle had the longest run on Batman ever. He should have never had to ask for work again from them. He should have been able to have work and be able to turn it down if he wants to.
Yep. Well, I wonder how much he pissed off everybody at DC when he left to go.
Who cares about him pissing off people? He was dependable.
They care.
That's why it's all messed up. It's a popularity contest. It's about, if I like you or not, or man, screw all that. They're not about business.
No,
it's not
you're
about
right.
I like
you.
Politics.
It's politics.
An editor should be all about business. I don't care if you like me or not. If the fans like me and they want me, and I'm dependable and I could get the work done, shut up and just hire me and let's get this work done.
Right. I agree.
Because right now, you guys don't give any compliments on the work when you get it in. I have to wait weeks. I'm like, did you guys get it? Do you like it? Oh, yeah, we got it. Thanks. I'm like, oh, man, that's why I was saying before. I think I said it in another one. Archie Goodwin was the only one that, the last good editor that would do that. This guy was calling me from his deathbed, I'm like, it's insane,
Yeah, it is interesting because and maybe we have a greater appreciation because we are artists, but I see stuff on Facebook, or if my anchor gives me something, on a project and it just really looks good. I mean, the first thing I do is let them know, oh my gosh, this looks fantastic. Thank you. Yeah. And
hey,
but
artists,
see, I don't know.
Artists live off of that. That's energy beyond just money. That's fuel for us to want to please people. That's why we do this. And a stupid editor now can't even do that. Pick up the phone and say, hey, great job. Thank you for the work. This is work.
Well, but I think that it's really sort of a microcosm example of how editorial has changed, because it used to be people that were editing, when we were coming up, or even, before we were coming up, were people that were entrenched in the industry, and they knew good artwork, or they knew bad artwork, and they knew guys that got stuff done on time, and, that they could count on. And I don't know. Again, maybe it changed with the image phenomenon, where it suddenly became, whatever they perceived as being, a hot artist or whatever, was more important than a guy that maybe they didn't perceive as being a hot artist, but could get the job done on time or whatever. It just suddenly became. I mean, I remember talking to Dan DiDio about. I won't say who it was, but a certain writer who was complaining about how late the guy was, and I'm like, "You're the one who hired him." And he's like, yeah, well, he's a hot writer. And I'm like, yeah, but what good is it if you got a hot writer who's not producing anything, Exactly.
And the thing is that put him on a specialty project. Don't put him on something that needs to be getting done fast and in a
Right.
month. That's ridiculous. And see, that's what I'm talking about too. It's a popularity contest, and it is about, hey, look at the marbles that I have in my bag. Mine are cooler than yours. And
Yep.
it's a pissing contest between these dumbass editors that don't know nothing, and get a good editor like Brian Augustine, long since retired,
Yep.
but he was a great editor. We would bump heads and stuff like that, but he was passionate. That's why we bumped heads. And he
Yep.
knows I'm a passionate person, but it was, he cared, you know what I mean? It's just, these most of these editors don't care because it's a popularity contest between all these editors, and look at who I'm friends with.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, a lot of them, because the big two or whatever owned by bigger companies.
Yeah.
A lot of people were coming into DC and wanting to be editors as their foot in the door to Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
They really weren't passionate about comic books per se, and they didn't know anything about comic books, yet they were being hired as an editor.
That's for sure.
Which I found really confusing.
Well, and it's, I think a lot of writers are doing that too. They're more concerned about getting a television show than they are necessarily writing a good comic. And it's
exactly.
And that kind of irritates me as well too. It's kind of like, because especially when you get a script that, would be better off as an episode of Law and Order than it would be, a Batman story. And, but they, they're not concerned about that. They're concerned about, because they don't care. This is just a stepping stone to get to a TV job. And so they're writing TV scripts for comic books, which is boring as hell.
Yep. Exactly.
And then I'm not saying that's not all writers. Like I said, I there's good writers out there.
It's a big portion of them, and that's the trend.
Well, that's certainly the trend right now. Yes, absolutely. And I don't, that's the thing that's most frustrating for me is that, you think about what you got that were, what got you into comics, what you loved about comics that was attracted to you, that got you into this. And it's like, it's just, it's not even there anymore.
Yeah.
You pick up a comic book and it's like, this doesn't look like anything I remember comic books being when I wanted to be a comic book artist. The fun and the excitement, the wonder, seeing something larger than life rather than a reflection of the misery of today. It's like our real lives are challenging enough without having to read about them in a comic book. I want something that's going to just totally take me away and go someplace else, that I can't go otherwise.
Exactly. But
and that sort of wonderment and stuff is just, it's kind of gone away with the if you want to call it the maturity of comics. And I mean, you can do intelligent, well thought out comic books without making them boring and, without losing that sort of, that wonderment that made comics so great when we were growing up. But no one seems to want to do that. It's just, maybe they don't remember how, they don't know how, I guess, anymore. I don't know. And they don't want to hire the people that do.
I don't think comics always have to be hyper logic and always spell it out. And, it has to have science and hyper science and reason and all this other kind of stuff too. Cause that kind of fun stuff of, John Carter of Mars. Well, we know people can't live on Mars, but you know what I mean? It's just like, let's, for the sake of this story, yes, they can.
Well, Shelley just put it back here in the background. She said, all you need, why not just, get a good story? That's what you need. Just a good story would be a place to start.
Exactly. I agree.
Clever, or I like movies where it's just done so well that you get to the end, you're like, that was really clever.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, I have my son right now is 28, and he's going back and reading like the Spider-Man essentials, and he's like in the, reading in the 50s and 60s, the issues of the issue numbers 50s and 60s and stuff, that when Romita was, cooking on that book. And it really, back in probably from 66 to 68, 69, that's when Marvel had really figured out their kind of superhero formula, and it was really some good stuff. And he's just amazed at how good the stuff was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, and you can't find anything that, I mean, Spider-Man was, he was dealing with complex emotional issues, but it was simple storytelling, and yet it was so engaging. And I really do miss that. I mean, yeah. I mean, like I said, we can sit here and complain about the industry all day long quite easily, but it's really true. It's just, and I don't know, maybe I have failed to change with the times in terms of what my expectations are, but it's like when you're in love with something and it completely changes and becomes something different, you want to pretend that you still love it, but you're like, I can't, because it's not
better.
Yeah, different and not better. Exactly. It's like, I don't read new comic books for the most part, because most of them don't.
Neither do other people. So
If they want new readership, they're going to have to do stories that are readership friendly. They want.
Hey, the readers are Aaron and me. We're the guys who still would, if they were good, we'd still buy comics.
Right.
When that's the thing, if they want the industry to live, they have to start producing things that a parent can say, yeah, I can remember reading comic, like whenever we would go on a trip in our motorhome, we'd all get to buy one comic book.
Mm-hmm.
We'd read that thing till it fell apart. But I mean, that was kind of our thing. And if they want kids to do that, they're going to have to start making stories that, one, are interesting, and two, that they can read, and parents don't have to worry about stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
What comics did you read when you were a little girl?
We would buy Richie Rich and Archie.
He was Richie Rich and Archie, I'm sure.
Yep.
That's cool.
I was superheroes and monsters all the time, man. That's all I ever.
You and me both. Mine were just superheroes, but I had some monster books. But I was afraid of them, but I kept going back to them, which is weird.
Well, that's the weirdest thing that my mom can't figure out with me, is because I was, obviously we're both Christians, but I was raised in a Christian family, right? And yet here I am buying Ghost Rider battling Satan, as a comic. What the heck is what's going on in my mind? I don't know. But there was just something really sort of cool about that. And, I was buying Man-Thing and Frankenstein Monster and those books, along with Spider-Man and the Avengers. And, I bought as many as I could afford, 25 cents a piece when I started collecting.
Mm-hmm.
And, but yeah, I could never figure out what my gravitation to monsters was, because I love, Universal Monsters as well. In fact, I just went and saw Frankenstein, was at a local theater here. I went with a friend of mine to go see that on Friday night. And it's just, I don't know, I love that stuff. I think it's it's just not real. It's not, it's just another way. When you see a monster in a movie, it's like, you're in a fantasy situation that is not, it's the ultimate escapism, I guess.
Sure.
Why does that keep popping up? No. Yeah.
So, get rid of the stuff on the right.
Oh. Okay. Oh, computer technology, man. Now, see, you got a rap, dude, for not being the fastest guy in the world, but you're toasting me.
I don't know where that rap came from.
We are clearly not slow.
Hold on, I gotta get a ruler.
Give me a chance to catch up.
Yeah. What do I do with it? That's weird. Did I drop it? Oh, I dropped it. No wonder.
And it's on the floor with, that's where most of my stuff is.
Well,
Well, I'll take a moment here to put out a little subliminal advertisement.
Tell all your friends.
Because if you don't subscribe, this is what you'll get. You don't want the look from Shelley.
No.
Well, now Hyper Potato's defending comics. He says there are still fun comics. It just may not be what you grew up reading. I quit Spidey when he made a deal with the devil, but I found something else to read. No, I'm sure there's, I'm not suggesting there isn't any books out there that aren't worth reading. We're just kind of talking in gross generalities here. I think I recommended not too long ago Savage Avengers, which isn't, I haven't read it. No, I read the first 5 issues, and I think it's been out for a couple of years now. But I thought was a pretty fun book. But there's a lot of stuff out there that I don't get why they're going the direction they're going. So that's, I guess, really our point when it all comes down to it. I think someone's killed David.
No.
The camera's pointing on the ground. You're silent. There's like, what happened to David Williams?
Yeah.
There's just like a couple pieces of pie crumb down there, and that's it. And
Sorry.
no, that's all right.
I got to get some tape. I got to tape this down because it's getting out of control. Hold on again.
All right. Hyper Potato says David is immortal.
That is true. That is true. By the blood of Jesus. By the blood of Jesus Christ.
That's absolutely right. Is David's camera strapped to his forehead? That's Mike Miller for you. Now here we go. What do you think of this? Hyper Potato says a big problem is stories are only snippets. You buy a $4 comic, you don't get a story, you get a piece of a forthcoming trade.
Yep.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Nope.
In fact, I remember it used to be a big deal there was a lot of 2-part stories, the cliffhanger, right, to get you to come for the next issue. But rarely did a story go beyond, 2 issues. If it was like a 3 or 4 issue thing, it was a major event. And I remember a couple of Avengers comics that had, and there was one Spider-Man arc where Harry Osborn returned as a Green Goblin, and I think his psychiatrist, he was actually seeing a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist actually became the Green Goblin, but you didn't find that out till like the end. And it was like a 4-issue thing. And it was like the most amazing thing because it was like, like so involved, and you're kind of like, as a kid, or as a young reader, I wasn't exactly a kid. I was probably 14, but I guess it's still a kid, but not a little kid. But you're still sitting there just engaged with this whole thing, like, oh my gosh, where's this going to end up, And then usually if they strung it out for that long time, it was worth it. There was a payoff for a story that took 4 issues.
I've been working here all day. It is so hot in here.
It is.
5 million light bulb.
Well, I got the lights on to sort of.
I had to go change clothes. I don't even know where my phone is.
I don't know. It's warm in here, but
Killing me. Smalls? Killing me. I think I need your phone. Oh, no.
man, you put your stars in already? Gosh, killing me.
You're over there flapping your gums.
I know. Well, I've got it. I'm entertaining the masses is what I'm doing. Let's get it straight. And that was the other thing, I remember there was an Avengers story that really stuck with me when I was a kid. It was I want to say it was Count Nefaria or whatever, and as I remember, he showed up and beat the crap out of all the Avengers, right? Mm-hmm. And Thor eventually showed up. Thor and the Vision showed up and kicked his butt and saved the day after all the other Avengers were basically just destroyed. And I remember that as a kid, as it being like this huge, like, oh, it had to have been 3 or 4 issues long. It had to have been this big event. And I went back and found it, and it was 2 issues, but they crammed so much into just 2 issues. There was no wasted.
Yeah.
Let's Cap meets his friend at the coffee shop for 3 pages and talks about current events. It was just they got to the point, and it was great. That's still one of my favorite comics I remember from, being a kid. And it was just remarkable to me that how much, like I said, how much story they got into this thing for, in 2 issues. That would never happen today,
Nope.
And there's a point that when you're paying that much money for a comic book like people are today, it's like, man, there's got to be some content in that. And there isn't a lot of times. Or at least to justify the price tag.
The content that they have in their comics now is Hydra saying, if you don't know the difference between Steve Rogers Cap and Sam Wilson Cap, then you ain't black.
Oh. Not that we're going to get political or anything, because you know how YouTube is. Don't whatever you say, whatever you do, don't say voter fraud, or they'll cancel. Oops, they'll cancel the video. Oh, that was a workout. That's the thing. Whenever you draw Batman or you have to draw a space scene, you can kiss your black marker goodbye.
Yeah.
Like there goes another one. And now do I want to take the time or take the chance of refilling this and absolutely getting black ink all over everything, which is always what happens to me. Or just throwing it out and buying a new one, which is kind of that's sort of my method of operation these days. Is I refill all my other pens, but my black ones, they constantly. I think the ink though is thicker. It's more like a varnish than like the grays and stuff, and it gets clogged in there, and then you start squeezing a little harder, then it explodes out. And do you refill your blacks or do you throw them out?
I throw them out.
See? Now, is that just the black ink or is it all pens?
Just all. I hate refilling them because it gets all over the place.
Yeah, see, that's exactly right. But I refill my grays. That's really fantastic. I'm gonna go ahead and give you the screen so you can show this off. There's David's Silver Surfer piece. He's kicking my butt. But Kind of knew that was going to happen. Now, if someone were interested in purchasing that from you, David, can they Facebook you, or how would you like to be contacted?
Yeah, they could contact me through Facebook. Hey, Ken Carson is my guy, so you could ask him.
Is he still here?
I don't know, maybe.
Komanga says, David. Hey, Komanga says, David, you gained a fan. See, it was worth it coming on here with me. And then he
awesome. Thank you.
He says, incredible. Look at that. See, Mike's like, who's making the poll? Mike, I'm not sophisticated like your show. I don't do the poll thing. I just say David's the winner until he goes off the air, and then I come back and say that I let him win. And,
here's the actual piece.
Yeah. That's closer to what mine's looking like. So
Hey, you take a nap?
All right. Well, if you're done, then I'm going to say I'm done, even though I'm going to put some gray on this anyway. But I'll go ahead and show. Oops. Let's see.
Ooh, that's nice.
That's not too bad.
I don't know what you're talking about. See, you got power action going in there. I like it. Just add some stars.
I'm going to. I'm going to. I just. I don't have that little thing, that little dabber that you have. I've got. I got to do it with a brush or a. I got a charcoal white pencil that sometimes I use. It's pretty effective, but I don't know. It's buried someplace. What is that? Presto? Is that just like whiteout? Or is that for an artist? Is that?
Yeah. Go get some.
All right. Because I got Pro White, but you know how quick that dries up.
Nah, get this. I just blop, 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 blop. Done. Next thing.
Coolio. All right, man. I think that's going to pretty much... See, everybody's saying how great your drawing is, but no one's commenting on mine.
I think you did that on purpose because you're a good host.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Let me get back on me so we can... So anyway, we had pie. You had peach. What did you have?
Peach pecan.
Yeah. My gosh, I'm going to have to find some of that. I'm going to look that up on the internet, see if I can find someone who has that, because that sounds really good.
It is.
And Shelley taught us pie.
A little bit.
We ate pie, and then we drew this. So maybe we should have drawn pie.
Maybe.
I don't know. Well, make sure you post that drawing up on Facebook. And yeah, you guys don't forget, David is currently working on Bass Reeves with Kevin Grievous. And is that issue 3 right there?
Nope, this is.
Oh, that's got that cool cover. I love that cover.
Yeah.
So let me ask you something real quick here before I let you go. So I tend to gravitate towards simple, powerful images on comic book covers, movie posters, you know, that type of thing, as opposed to something busier.
Yeah.
So what are you, give me your what you like to see on a cover. When you're doing a cover, or even if you're buying a poster or something that somebody else did, or buying a cover someone else, what are you looking for?
Well, it depends on the series. Like, I think you should give them a little bit of all of the things. Like you could give them the graphic poster type thing, but the next one should be like a storytelling aspect of the book. You know what I mean? Like how we used to.
You're not giving them all the same thing every month, right?
Yeah. So it's something familiar for what's in the book to come, or something that could be cool, like a splash page that isn't in the book, but it's obviously on the cover. You know what I mean? And the other one is like a cool, you know, graphic of your main character, you know, looking serious or somber or sad or whatever it is that gives you the tone of what the book is, you know. So I think you need to give them a little bit of everything. You know, you show your your full range. Just don't make them all look like movie posters.
Right. Well, and that here we go off on a tangent, but I think that became a problem, or has been a problem for a long time in this industry, is preparing covers for books that we don't even know what the story is, because it has to get out in the Diamond catalog, right? And so you end up doing Wonder Woman posing again. And I have a real problem with that. I've always had a real problem with that. It's kind of like, can we not get to a point where we're far enough ahead? I mean, we're only talking 3 months, that you know where you're going, so that, I mean, when you're on a regular series and you're the regular artist on it, you're doing the covers, you're pretty much, if you're with a responsible writer, you're pretty much know where you're going, and that wasn't a problem. But I've had so many times where I had someone come to me and say, hey, can you do a cover for this issue? And you're like, yeah, what's going on? Oh, we don't know yet. Just draw, Wonder Woman posing or whatever. And I'm like, well, how many different poses could I put Wonder Woman in? But I always loved Gil Kane's covers, because he would take a strong central image of either, say Iron Man,
Green Lantern,
and
Captain Marvel,
whoever, and it was like that was your focus. And there was maybe stuff going on behind him or whatever, but there was always that sort of simple, main, cool, focus, strong, big image of, you can go through a dozen Gil Kane covers where that's sort of, it's either the hero himself or it's the hero and the villain engaged in, in a way that's the focus, and there's energy to it, and there's some storytelling, but it's still really graphically bold in terms of its design and construction, so that your eye it goes right to it.
Mm-hmm.
I go to a comic shop and I can just you can do the wave, with your head. You just go, and everything just kind of bleeds together, and every once in a while a cover that's well designed will pop out, and grab your attention. And not to say that everything was better in the 60s and 70s, but there was a lot more of quality cover design going on, not necessarily execution, because there's some tremendous artists working in comic books, but, and this is an argument I've made many times before, is they're mostly illustrators, right? They're not necessarily comic book artists. So you have this great technique and a great single image that's just drawn really, really well, or colored really, really well, but it feels more like an illustration for a magazine than it does a comic book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not critical of the talent, that's involved in comics today, but I am a little critical of people that lack that sort of dynamic comic book instinct that seems to be missing a little bit in not everyone's work, but in a lot of the stuff. That's why I dig guys like, Ron Garney. There's so much, he's really, he's simplified his style over the years, and yet it's still so powerful, and has so much energy in it, and I'd like to get to that point where I can simplify my stuff a little bit, but I grew up being a renderer, and it's hard to back away from that.
Mm-hmm.
You've always been more leaning towards animation in terms of style and approach, which I really like, but it's just really hard for me to do because it doesn't feel right when I do it.
Yeah. Well, I think you have a really lush style, especially when Sludge is still some of my favorite art that you've done, and when you do stuff like that, when you could get really involved, I could see the volumes and the shape, and it feels like what the thing is, the textures and all that kind of stuff. And I could, and there's no need to want to simplify that. You know what I mean? So I think you should lean into where your strengths are, and your strengths are in that type of stuff. Like I thought you could have been on Swamp Thing or Man Thing or any of those other kind of things, a long time ago, but having other guest characters that you love to come in, you know what I mean? Right. And you could have played with that kind of, that's a no-brainer, but over there they have no brains.
Well, but that's probably, I think, when you really break it down, why I loved Wrightson so much is because he was able to, and then why I'm such a big David Finch fan, because I think he does it really well too, is he creates such three-dimensional volume by the black placement,
Yeah.
It creates so much depth. And there's guys that can do that like your characters are meaty. You know, you don't use a lot of that, but your characters still feel meaty. Kind of like, you know, Chuck Jones always was my favorite of the Warner Brothers animators because I always felt like his characters were not flat. They had some depth to them. Like you could squeeze them, you know, they were, and so I look at, you know, your stuff, you do a really fine job of, you know, doing a simple style. And I don't mean simple in terms of easy, but simple in terms of less line work. And yet you still create, you know, nice volume and weight to your characters. And I think that's really what our goal is. I mean, we're working on a 2-dimensional surface and we're trying to create a 3-dimensional effect the best we can. For sure.
And, you know, and I think, you know, you don't want to move away from what your signature is. You know, you don't want to throw your audience so far into a curve in your artistic thing and say, okay, I'm completely, you know, not doing this style anymore, and I'm doing cartoons. You're like, whoa, wait a minute, you know. I think I could get away with it because my audience has seen, you know, all the progression. You know what I mean? And
right, it wasn't just a harsh,
exactly. And I forewarn them, you know, of whatever project's next, that it's going in a different direction from the last thing that you saw. So they're already kind of mentally prepared.
Right.
You know.
Well, the science fiction story I'm working on right now, when I have Matt Ryan ink me, it's usually fairly slick looking because he's a very slick inker. And this was kind of a low budget project, just a short, you know, 8-page thing that I wrote and penciled. I'm just finishing up inking now. And it's a dystopian sort of Blade Runner kind of thing. And so I wanted it to be a little rougher. You know, I hate to use terms like gritty and things like, because what does that really mean? But in terms of the line work, more, I've inked the whole thing with a pen. I haven't picked up a brush yet. And I'm just doing everything with a pen so I can sort of recreate or try to recreate that energy that's there in the pencils by using a pen the same way I would a pencil, right? And some of the stuff feels different to me. I look at it and go, God, you know, you kind of want to put in those lush, you know, brush lines and all that kind of stuff. And I'm catching myself, no, because when you step back and look at the page, it feels like I want it to feel, you know. But but the approach, the finishes are different. The drawing's still the same. No one's going to look at it and go, "The heck is Aaron doing?" It just has kind of a rougher edge to it, and everything is, you know, the feather lines are not perfect, and the outline isn't perfect. There's some rough spots, and it does help kind of carry the mood of the story. But man, it's a challenge. And I've talked about this before too, is that you get it in your mind when you develop a style and you're comfortable with that style, that's what looks good to you. So you can see other people do stuff very different and you can go, wow, that's really cool. But you try to do it yourself and it doesn't look as cool to you personally because that's not what you've trained yourself to think looks good, right? And so it's hard for me to kind of wrap my brain around doing this a little bit differently. But I've said I've dedicated myself. I said I'm doing these 8 pages. I'm doing it like this. I'm hell or high water, and I think it works really well. It's just I've had some, you know, when you get in there and start noodling a little bit, you're like, oh, I want this line to be really straight, you know, instead of pushing back and looking at it and going, okay, the overall thing feels like I want it to feel, so therefore I'm doing it correctly. But it's tough. It's tough to make those little changes when you're not used to seeing your work like that.
Yeah. You ever have the experience of like you have your own characters and then you get another artist to draw it and they do it better than you?
That's the fear. When you were talking about Sludge earlier, we did some. Remember we did all those Ultraverse trading cards and stuff. Well, they gave some Sludge cards to other people and some of the villain cards, you know. And I looked at some of them and I was like, wow, that looks way cooler than I did it in the comic. You you know. And it's so funny because you have such tunnel vision. At least I do. It's like I think everybody's work is better than mine. You know what I mean? And then you have people come over and go, "Oh, Aaron, that really looks great." And you look at it and go, "Oh, really? I think this blows," you know? And, you know, a lot of times what happens is I'll draw something that I'm not particularly happy with, which is most of what I draw. And then I'll come back and look at it 3 months later or 6 months later, I'll pull it out of the drawer and go, "Wow, that's really nice." So it's like once you get some separation from it, you know, and you can kind of put a fresh set of eyes on it, it looks completely different.
Yeah.
But when I'm in the moment of working on it, man, I'm always like, I should have done this, I should have done that.
Yeah. I mean, I have some drawings that when I was younger, like around 17, 18, of my own characters, and I would go around and get people like Mike Mignola and Arthur Adams and Steve Purcell and those guys to draw my characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at them, I'm like, I can't draw them anymore now. So I had to change the costumes so I don't compete with what that was and re-envision these characters and stuff. And I was just like, dang, you know. So when this book of mine comes out, I might dig those out and say, hey, this is what they used to look like, you know. Because it goes back a long time.
I just, you know, I wonder if if maybe we are too hard on ourselves at times. It's just, but
any good artist is.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be. I remember I was on a panel with some people, and some guy was like, you know, how do you get better as an artist, right? And I basically, it was Grumpy Aaron, but I basically told him, I said, look, don't ever get comfortable and think that you're good. Because that's when you're going to just relax and think you've made it, and someone's going to pass you by. And I don't know, it was Jimmy Palmiotti or somebody else was on the panel, and they're like, well, you got to give yourself a break once in a while. I'm like, oh, I don't. You know, it's like the minute I give myself a break and say, hey, that's pretty good, I'm pretty good, I'm not going to be. And the older you get, the harder it is to stay relevant. So you can't just say, you know, I'll just coast, I'm good enough, because you're not. You're never good enough. Because there's all these guys coming up that are really, really good.
I'm always looking at new talent. I'm constantly going, oh, okay, this guy is good. You know, I don't have no ego about it. And I said, I'm just going to take what they're doing and try to implement it, or what I can, into my stuff. I mean, the only time I look at my stuff and I go, hey, that wasn't half bad, is like years later. Like I'll look at some sketches that I put away or never finished or thought wasn't good enough, because I got like these thick, you know, FedEx boxes full of random drawings and just loose drawings and stuff like that, because my wife won't let me throw this stuff away. And I go back. She's I'm gonna be paid. No, just kidding. No.
I'm cashing in on all this stuff, right?
Exactly. I look at it and I go, you know what? That wasn't as bad as what I thought when I did it, you know, because I wanted to just tear it up and just, you know, in secret, you know, and throw it away. But I say, you know what? I'm going to dust this off and, you know, finish it. And this could be a poster, or I could put it into my new comic or whatever, somehow, some way, you know. So just keep all of that stuff. You look at it with fresh eyes, you know, years later.
Yeah, well, I've got this studio's full of flat files, and they're full of art, because I don't. I mean, I sell my stuff when I can, but I don't throw anything away. And I've got some stuff that, even looking at, you know, from 15 years ago, I'm like, I wish I'd thrown away. But there's a ton of stuff, like I said, back on it. It looks a lot better than you remember it, you know. And you go, oh, I wasn't quite as bad as I thought I was, but. I don't know. It's just, I think there's this sort of this grass is greener effect, where we look at other artists and go, wow, that's brilliant, but we can't see that in our own stuff, you know? Yeah. And so it's hard to get a realistic perspective of, you know, where you stand with your contemporaries. And I think that's all any of us really want. I mean, that's how I measure success, is what do other artists think of my stuff, not how many books I sell or whatever like that. Is, you know, I want other artists to look at my stuff and go, yeah, Aaron was really good. You know, I mean, that's what I want, you know? And so,
Well, you already got that.
And when you see some guys that are so talented, it's tough to kind of place yourself in there and say, how do I fit in with these other guys? This stuff is so brilliant, you know? But, you know, we do what we can do and let other people decide.
Exactly. So does this mean I won again?
Yeah, of course. You destroyed. You know, I don't hang out with people that I think are worse than me. I hang out with people that think are better than me. See, that makes me it raises my profile up. So
that's a good way of looking.
So
at
I give you victory again. I give you victory again. So that's all right. Well, David, we're gonna have to do this again. I enjoy having you on and talking with you. We don't. It's like the only time we talk. Occasionally on Facebook messaging back and forth, but
yeah.
You know, keep me updated on the crowdfunded thing. I know you're still a couple months away from attacking that, but it sounds really interesting, and I think that I think there's got to be a way where, you know, some of us can sort of umbrella together so we can, without necessarily having a piece of anybody's action. I just mean in terms of, I just think I'm not even sure what I'm saying, except that I know that with readers, and maybe some people in this audience would agree or not, but I just think, you know, a connected, bigger universe that allows people to really get involved in is a bigger draw, you know. And it'd be nice, sort of like in an Image kind of way, where you're sort of loosely connected with a few other creators, and you could cross over once in a while, or, you know, I mean, I'm just spitballing off the top of my head. I don't know exactly how it would work in this day and age, especially with crowdfunding, but I just think that there's enough of us that are, you know, I know Ethan is doing that kind of thing with, you know, Comicsgate and all that kind of stuff, but I just think that there's a way to let everybody keep their autonomy, and at the same time work together in a way to sort of, you know,
just promote good comics.
Yeah, promote good comics, but I don't think that it's the best idea for all of us to be out in an island. You know what I mean? If there was some way that there was some sort of connective tissue between what all of us were doing, or a group of us were doing, that would make a buyer or reader say, yeah, Aaron's book is really cool, but I know David's doing this and it's part of the same type of thing. And, you know, where they feel like there's, you know, I bought Man-Thing and I bought Captain America. They weren't rarely crossed over, but they were both part of Marvel. You know what I mean? So it was all sort of that, you know, being part of a Marvel zombie. And I think there's something to that. I don't know exactly what the formula is, but it's something I'm thinking about here as I'm getting ready to sort of jump into this crowdfunding thing as well. So it's something to keep in touch about and
for sure
think about. There's got to be.
I don't know nothing about this thing, really. So whatever you come up with, let me know.
Well, I've got some ideas. I'll talk with you about it as we get closer here. But anyway, it's oh my gosh, it's almost 8 o'clock here. That's like really late over on the East Coast. And you're probably what? Are you Mountain Time? Or are you?
Yeah, it's 8:51 over here.
Are you almost 9?
Say again.
You're 8:51.
Yeah.
What time are you? Okay, so you're an hour later. So, all right, let's wrap this thing up. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Let's see, look at this. Before we go, another great show with, I thought he said another great show, David. I didn't see the whip, and I'm like, hey, I'm a part of this too, pal. See, I bring in a guest. I bring on guests, and everybody loves the guests more than me. It's just terrible. Oh, well, I bring my wife on. Everybody loves Shelley. But David, we'll do this again, man. I really enjoy having you on, and we always have interesting conversations. So I love picking your brain. So anyway, let me run a little copyright infringement here and say goodnight to everybody, and thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you again soon.